Hey man, it's DM Dongo, man. Here with another review from the DM's Guild. This time we're gonna be looking at Amarune's Almanac, Forests of the Realms, man. Written and designed by all these lovely people, man. There's some great people over there, man. I wanna meet some of them people. Anyways, it's on the DM's Guild for $9.95, man. Go and check it out, and don't forget to hug a tree, man. Alright, what is Amarune's Almanac? Now, Amarune's Almanac is a collection of a bunch of different things. It's kind of a way of... these glasses are really annoying, I'm taking them off. It's kind of a way of putting things together around a specific theme, and the theme here is forests. And there's a newer one that's just being released very soon, which is Amarune's Almanac for the Underdark. So there's some really great stuff coming around out of all of these authors. Specifically, the lead designer on this is Steve Fiddler. I was approached by him a while back to do a review on this one, and I thought this is a good time to pick it up. And also because I haven't been doing a lot of reviews lately, and I need to kind of get back in the cycle of it, and it seemed a good, appropriate time. But Amarune's Almanac, this is a collection of a bunch of different things, and I want to kind of go through the various sections that you've got. So first, you've got a section on player options, and that includes a couple of new, a new Druidic Circle of the Grove, and a new Ranger subclass, the Sylvan Sentinel. It also includes new rules for Druidic spell casting and the Ranger's Natural Explorer feature. It adds in some new spellcasting components, which is really interesting around spellcasting, like component around the environment. So if you're in the right place, the spells will do different, or you're required to be in a specific spot in order to use these specific spells. And they gain a lot of power because they are in those environments. And it's a really kind of interesting thing. You could use it as a dungeon master because you could, for instance, have a druid that lives in this circle and has this specific spell and uses it because they really they never leave it. Because druidic, some druidic circles historically wouldn't leave their like protected circles. There's that classic kind of thought of let's keep the circle safe kind of thing. So I want to talk about just like a couple of the spells. So one of the ones that has a environmental focus is Woodland Step, which is what allows you to pass through the undergrowth with ease. Basically, as part of the action to cast a spell, you must use the dash action. When doing so, you enter a semi-incorporeal state, and you can move without provoking attack for opportunity. Additionally, you can make a single melee attack against any creature that's within 5 feet of your chosen path. So essentially, you could whip your way through a whole bunch of enemies, and then at the end of it, hit the last one in the chain, as it were. And you do your normal attack damage. So this would be a really good combination if you're using something like Shillelagh, or you were a ranger who specialized in certain types of combat. It'd be a really good thing around that side of thing. The really interesting ones, like the higher level stuff, Essence of the Forest. Now, obviously, these all are going to be forest environment, but I think the intention is in future installments, you will see the same kind of structure. You'll see a bunch of spells that have the environment tag attached to them, and thus any druid or caster who's picking these spells doesn't have to fear like, oh, you'll never be in those things. And a lot of campaigns are structured around a very specific kind of area. A lot of them are like, so if you think about like the official ones, you've got Tomb of Annihilation, which is mostly jungle with some caving. You've got the Waterdeep ones, which are basically all either urban or within like a dungeon setting. So I guess that would be cave, or potentially like maybe they have their own environment tag attached to them. But then there's some other ones like Storm King's Thunder, which takes place all over the place. So forests, mountains, glaciers, all kinds of things. But the ninth level spell I actually really like as well. So you basically it's called Essence of the Forest and has a VSNM. You need a diamond and a handful of rowan berries, so worth 10,000 gold. The spell does consume this, and you need to be within a forest. Like all the environment spells, you need to be in the right space. You touch a willing creature that has one or more hit points, infusing it with a blessing granted from the very life force of the forest. If the target dies during the duration for any reason except old age, so it's kind of like Death Ward, but but this is the bet that is a little stronger. The creature's soul is free and willing to create, returns to life at the start of his next turn with equal to half its hit point maximum. So it's like an improved version of Death Ward. It's like, nope, you're not going to die. There's no way you're going to die, and you come back as well. This spell also neutralizes all wounds, kills any poisons, cures all diseases, lifts any curses. It's basically like there's like a spell from like some of the old Final Fantasy games, was like Re-raise, that was the one I'm looking for, which basically, if you died, you came back immediately. It will also, for instance, if you were disintegrated, it will create a new body within 10 feet of where the body died. So I really like that spell as like a general kind of idea. In addition to the spells, you go on from that, you go on to locations, and this is kind of where the bulk of the material is really interesting. It deviates from the first section, which is like very strict, like hard mechanical stuff. This is all lore around the various woods in the Forgotten Realms. So things like the Addy Wood, the Jungles of Chult, the High Forest, and the Ewer Wood. These places are existing. If you have done any kind of adventuring in the Forgotten Realms, you will know about these places, and it's really interesting to read about the various creatures and monsters about them, because each one is different and unique and has different things within it that make it special and make it kind of, and then they make it a very unique experience. It means that all your forests aren't going to feel samey, because you can use these to help you, even if you're not running Forgotten Realms stuff, you can use these to go, okay, well, this is this kind of jungle, this is this kind of forest, this is this kind of wood, this is this kind of forest, and I can go, okay, well, I can plop those types of force in there and those types of enemies in there and that type of idea in there, and that way I can keep like the idea of these forests are different from each other, and it gives you good ideas on how you do that. And it's like it's all written from the perspective of Amarune, which is an interesting character in the Forgotten Realms lore. You're probably better off looking to somebody like Forgotten Realms Explained to find out who she is and what she's done. If you've watched any of his videos, he's really quite good. Jordan with a PH. But like I said, from there we move on to things to do in between adventures, and this one specifically around forest. So you're looking at plants and gatherings and various flora that potentially may be within the forest that you can gather, a lot of woods and trees and things like that. Some are just wood and they don't do much beyond that, but other things have magical properties or have very valuable properties for certain people. For instance, Bloodroot is very valuable to vampires because guess what? But there is also really interesting other things. You can do some interesting bits and pieces, and I don't want to spoil too much here, but there's some really interesting stuff around like different trees and things, and that's one of those things that players occasionally will bring up. It's like, well, is there anything special? Druid specific, it's like, can I get, like the old classic used to be, can I get Ironwood? It's like, and now there is a way to do that, which is really good. It's like a really easy way of understanding how these things are set up. From there, we move on to a huge section on beasts and monsters and then magical items. So a brand new section of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that 9? 9 new creatures for your Dungeons and Dragons games that are all around the idea of monsters that exist within a wood, within some kind of wood or jungle potentially. So things like boars and I remember that one. So there's some older ones that I've remembered before. So the Hangman Tree is very an interesting enemy that basically it exists as a tree with a bunch of nooses. I think, if I remember correctly, one of the Forgotten Realm, one of the Wizards of the Coast adventures, one of the early ones, I think the Sunless Citadel has one of these trees inside of it. But I've never seen a stat log for it outside of that, and it's good to see it's kind of here in a nice published form. But there are other things like silverback apes and white stags. So some really good things. In addition to that, a lot of these are beasts. So your druids are going to be like, hey, maybe I can transform into those kind of thing. Or if you're polymorphers, it's kind of the same thing. Moving right along, you have magical items, and you have everything. You have shields, but they're all based around things that are in the forest, and that's the thing around this. That's the big thing that kind of encapsulates the whole thing. Everything is done around the idea of this is a person who has explored the forests and plumbed their depths and found out kind of the interesting, the unique, the challenging, the magical parts of the forest, and they've come back. And that's how this thing is put together. Think of this like a Volo's Guide to Monsters for the forests of the Forgotten Realms. It's very specific and targeted. Whereas, not Volo's, Mordekaiser's is a better choice because Volo lies a shitload and doesn't always tell the truth. But it is kind of that idea of there is a person who's explored things, they've done things, they've gone to places, and now they're writing about it. In fact, Volo, the reason I mentioned Volo is because Volo comes up in this adventure, is that he is the kind of the impetus for this person writing the book, Amarune for writing this book. And it's a really interesting take on how you would structure that. And it's also a really good structure. The lore was really pleasant to read. The formatting is great. The art is fantastic when present. Even if I do recognize some of it is like the older stock art stuff that I've seen before, it's good that it's that way because it's important that your art kind of fits your theme, and everything in here is perfect for that. It's really, really well presented, and everything really hits really home. It's nice as well that the every single location has a kind of like, where is this wood? Where is this forest? Where is it specifically? And it's really good that it has that kind of like, here is it on the map, and it gives you a nice big Forgotten Realms map as well at the very beginning to say, here's the Forgotten Realms that we're looking at right now. Here is where they are. So if you're playing in one of these campaigns where the Forgotten Realms is prevalent and very strongly at the forefront, then you can use this to go, oh, those are where we're going. And it will help DMs to like flesh out some areas that some of the adventures kind of like wash over, and sometimes players end up in them, and you're like, well, what's in this forest? And there's that much, a little tiny paragraph or a sentence. I think one of the forests actually in one of the books is a sentence, so which isn't so great. Now, let's move on to what I liked about this. Well, I liked a lot about it. I liked the formatting. It was really well formatted, really well put together. It took itself seriously in terms of the way they decided to present this. I like the way they presented this as well. I like the idea of a person kind of recounting their tales about various. It gives it a personal kind of, almost like reading a story. It makes it not so boring to read through. In terms of the way, like, it doesn't read like a textbook. It reads like a story, which is really nice and a really good way of presenting information for these kinds of materials. It means that you're not, as a dungeon master, bored to tears at the end when you get to the end of a section. In addition to that, I like that they took the time to create appendices and all kinds of extras, so that it wasn't such a thing that I'm looking through all that lore to figure out exactly what I'm looking for. Like, I'm looking for what monsters are in, like, what creatures exist within this area. And I can go, well, I don't know. But I can go to a table at the very end and say, well, what flora exists within this area? It's like, well, these... So if I look at, for instance, let's say Lantan, I know that there are Discwood, and Miscrap is present in that area. And then I can go back and look at what those things are and their purposes and what they do. That was a really nice little feature that I really liked, because it just meant that I didn't have to go looking through the various like lore documents to figure out, oh, well, these things are in this, and where. Oh, so somebody's players ask me what flora they can harvest in this area, and I don't know. And having that little table was really a nice thing to add. Also, another thing on tables, there was a nice little table on the list of the forest spells that were added to this. What school they were a part of, which is something that weirdly gets asked more than you think it does, especially for things that are like permanent spells or spells that last longer than a minute. Those kinds of things when people are casting expansion. What school is it? What school is it? I don't know! Oh god, I wish people who make magical items, I really wish they would just put, this is what the school says on magical items. Like, I know it's not a common practice, but it's something I get asked all the time, because people pick up things and they go, well, detect magic detect something. It's like, okay, well, what does it detect? Abjuration enchantment thing. But yeah, I liked I like the different monsters that are in it. They're very interesting and unique, and none of them feel about right for the CR, as CR is a broken system anyways, but we're not going to go into that. They feel good, they feel interesting, they feel unique. Some of them are terrifying, things like the Hangman Tree. The Hangman Tree I have seen before. This is a unique take on it, though. It's not one I've seen before. Usually it just kind of it just kills people by like hanging them. This one actually has a more biological structure within it, and it actually consumes them much more quickly than the other ones. And there's some really interesting things, like they've added things like iron woodpeckers. So if you have ironwood, it makes sense that there's something would have come along to eat the termites within them, or eat the little bugs or whatever. And it's kind of interesting that's kind of where we came to. So now on to what I didn't like about this, and I really can't pull out anything specific. I think if you are not a fan of this style of presenting information, I think you'll be upset. But I think you'll be upset with the same way that people are upset with Volos or with Mordenkainen's in the way that they present information. I think it's just a style thing, not a case of there's something wrong with this with this particular product. I think it's a really interesting book. I think it's really well done in the style it's been done in. I think if long as you take those two caveats, I think those are really good. I think those are the things you need to come in walking with this if you're looking at this. If you're wanting to buy this on the DM's Guild, if you hated Volos and hated Mordenkainen's, don't buy this, because it will be the exact same type of book, essentially. And I think also you're getting pretty good value for money here. But if you liked those two styles of books and you like the way that they structured information, I think you'll like this. I think you'll enjoy this. If you have a very forest-heavy campaign, I think you'll enjoy this. Now, on to my final thoughts in my rating. Now, it's going to come as no surprise that I really like this book. I really like everything about it. Why is it taking me so long to review? I've been sick a lot. I've been pretty much ill all of December and a little bit into January. And I've also been coming back to work and some other things as well in my personal life. But yeah, that's primarily why I haven't been able to do reviews. A lot of illness. And it happens every year around December as I just get destroyed. I'm not from the UK originally, and the weather here just is ruinous to me. I come from California, like Southern California, so the cold does not do me well. But that aside, I really, really like this book. I wanted to review it in December. I couldn't. I'm going to give it a 5-star review now. And when Amarune's Almanac, the Underdark one comes out, you should pick up that one as well, because it will be just as good, just as much attention to detail, and just as worthwhile if you're running those campaigns. And I think that's the big caveat I want to say. That's the big thing I want to say here. If you're running any campaign with forests that feature heavily in them, so I'm thinking like Curse of Strahd, what else is one? Something like so Curse of Strahd features forests quite heavily. They're all over the place down there. It gives you a good idea of what to do in those places. And also, if you're running something in Forgotten Realms like Storm King's Thunder, I think Tyranny of Dragons, those two run heavily in the foresty area. I know there's like a lot of moving around, but those forests do feature, and there are things you can do within them, and it'd be nice to add things into them. Or if you just want to run a more forest-heavy campaign, you want to have you want to have a whole party of druids and rangers to kind of exist in that kind of space. Maybe a cleric of like a specific nature deity as well, just to round things out for some reason. But it's kind of interesting that this is that book. This is something to help a campaign dedicated to forest, and it's nice, it's interesting, and I think it's a really worthwhile tool for a lot of DMs in their toolbox. And there's some interesting stuff around the two new subclasses that I've not seen before, and then definitely I've not seen in a way that was done. So I really like these things overall. And yeah, that's kind of everything. So please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really want to ring that bell, because it helps me, it helps the channel. And the biggest thing that helps the channel will be to use the affiliate code, which is down below in the description. So thank you, and peace out.